Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the What's On podcast. My name is Zachary.
My name is Ryan.
And today we're going to be talking about some of the best book to screen adaptions that we can think of, and one that we're actually really hoping that they actually come up with at some point. Starting off, we're just going to do a few questions as we go into 2020, just as it's December, last month of the year, just stuff that we think is going to happen or if stuff's going to die off going into the new year. So first one's going to be like the superhero movies.
Yeah.
Do you think that's going to die off going into 2020?
Honestly, maybe. I do think that it's a possibility because if you think about it, it's been a good 13 years now or so since they started off, I'd say, like the MCU.
Yeah.
When they started off doing all these and the DCs then took over, went into their own as well.
Yeah.
It's been 13 years with about nearly 30 films overall.
Yeah.
There's only so much you can really do, isn't there? And I think people would, I'm starting to get that way, where you start to get a bit bored of them.
Yeah.
So I reckon they might die off a bit, and then they might try and revive them in another 10 years or so. Up to a point, there's only so much you can do before people go, oh, well, we've seen all this now.
Pretty much. I agree as well, because with the MCU, they had this massive arching thing of Thanos over the course of the films and have it all between these phases, and now they're going into a brand new phase. So I don't know how innovative they can do to keep it as connected as that was, and how they can keep the interest without something overarching if it's just going to be film by film basis.
Exactly, yeah.
I think when we say 2020, we mean like this next decade, and I think DC has the potential to do something, because at the moment they've just got like one-off series that are really good, like the Christopher Nolan trilogy and certain other films like V for Vendetta. I know V for Vendetta is a very old one, but like they have singular films or a couple of good ones out there, and I think there is that open area for if DC could get something running potentially. But I think the whole genre at the moment, it's been at the forefront for the last decade and a half, as you say.
Yeah.
And I think over this next decade, I think it's going to drop down a bit. Mm-hmm. I don't know what's going to replace it, but I do think it's going to
It's definitely going to drop a bit, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like I said about superheroes, yeah. Another thing maybe to pass on is that games to screen, because obviously they're doing, starting this month, The Witcher.
As in games that have been out that you
games
want to see.
Games that have been out would possibly go into films. Do you reckon there could be anything?
So I know that's happening, or at least is still in the working of it, is the Uncharted series.
Yep.
Which I know you've not played, but you know about.
Yeah.
But they're making a young version of it where I think Tom Holland's playing like a young Nathan Drake. I'm happy that's happening, because I think it's a series that's made that's easy to transition into film. As you say, Witcher is one that's going from, although technically it's from the books. So.
It's technically from the books, but it was made popular as well by the game.
Yeah. Particular ones we mentioned before the podcast started that an interesting one would be the Dark Souls games, because they're traditionally known as just a bit of torture gaming where you play to die over and over again and enjoy the challenge of it. But the way, if you've played it, the story is very, very hidden. You have to seek it out. You have to read item descriptions to find out what's going on. And you can actually play the whole game through, just enjoying the challenge and not knowing what's going on. So I think that would be a perfect one to go into a movie environment to not explain it, but to explain it really, to have a good visual of what the game is about and what the world is about. Do you have any that you could think of?
I thought maybe Red Dead Redemption, bringing about obviously the gang and then John Marston's story after it as well. I reckon that'd be quite good for some films, because they're very story rich environments, and it's maybe though, because we've had during the 60s, 70s, like the Old West type of film, so maybe it's a possibility, maybe it's not. Yeah. I also thought maybe the Elder Scrolls, because you've got 5 coming up towards 6 games there with a massive story rich environment and landscape with a lot of lore behind it, which I reckon they could use quite well, because they're so dense when it comes to games.
Yeah,
I reckon they could definitely like follow the stories or make them even better.
Yeah, I think another good one would potentially be God of War. I think they could do a very good action-packed film from that. From not so much the recent ones, I think, but like sticking with that Greek mythology. I think they could do a really recent one. And that's just brought a thought to my mind because of the most recent one and games that I've seen coming out at the moment, like Death Stranding, the most recent God of War. Is how do you think about games transitioning into, they are becoming like feature-length films spread as you being the character in it, like God of War and Death Stranding, as I've seen through a few playthroughs and clips of it, is it's not so much a game, but it's like a film for you to experience and go through and experience and be part of. Like these are 20-hour long worlds to explore and be part of, and as opposed to just a playing like everything. Games are a playing experience, but it seems to me that a lot of stuff's transitioning into you as a person being part of a greater world.
I do like the premise. I mean, it's kind of how games are most of the time anyway. You are the character following the story. It's just that obviously in recent years that the technology's been made so that they look realistic and like films. But I do like being able to explore the worlds. I love the open world genre.
Because I think it's just like the scale of it's gotten massive at the moment.
Oh yeah.
Maybe a smaller scale one, but still having the same effect as like Last of Us.
Yeah.
Even though that's not open world, that's a whole another dystopian world that you're part of.
Yeah.
So like, as opposed
you are experiencing the world in the eyes of the characters.
Yeah.
So I do like the premise of it all.
That's something I was going to bring up, actually, the open world aspect. Do you think a lot more games are going to go into that? Because open world is a popular idea, but some people don't actually like it because it's a lot of going around finding things, and some people like more progressional, like leveling. Do you think it's going to be more popular going into this next decade?
I reckon so. I mean, it's always a good idea when it comes to open world because it gives the players the option of just... It gives them, instead of like level-based games, the chance to just do it at their own pace.
Yeah.
I mean, like a thing like with, say, the Elder Scrolls 5 Skyrim, you can choose to completely ignore the main quest and just go about your own way.
Yeah.
And there's so much story, side quests and everything that you can find in other places that you can keep entertained without even having to touch the main quest. Whereas with like progressional and level-based games, you have to follow the story. There is no other thing about it. I do like open world games. It's definitely my favourite genre.
Yeah. Do you think VR is going to become mainstream?
Yes, I reckon so. I reckon they'll bring VR in a bit more, make it cheaper, make it more streamlined, as it say, because it's only come in the last few years, hasn't it? Yeah. So you're going to have that, obviously, that thing. Like they try with other stuff like motion capture. Like, do you remember that the old Xbox?
Oh, like Kinect.
Yeah, the Kinect. Shocking.
But, I've never experienced that.
Shocking. But whereas this VR stuff, it's quite good. Like they've got the technology to make it good, and I reckon it will get better. Yeah,
I think so as well. I think they're gonna make it more efficient. They're gonna make it cheaper, and it's gonna be one of the main things of this next decade. Yeah. I think there's going to be occasions of people spending a lot of time in VR because it's a world that they can literally inhabit as opposed to mentally, like through a console. So I'm really interested in where VR's going, to be honest.
Sounds like Ready Player One. That does.
I think that is where it's trying to go. I don't know if the technology is possible. Yeah. I don't know if it's even possible, but if it is, I think that'd be really interesting. Obviously, it has its own potential issues because escapism taken to the max level and you're literally escaping to a different world. But I think that's where people are trying to get to in terms of VR. But obviously we're at baby steps now, having the hand console. Well, now people are able to buy it themselves. People are able to go into a shop and have their own VR system now, aren't they? For us, it's a bit of an expensive side. So I think over the next decade, technology's going to get better, it's going to get cheaper, and it's going to get in there.
Yep.
Do you think cinemas are dying?
No.
No?
I think
that's a leading question. What do you think of like the cinema, film releasing world?
I don't think like when it comes to it, like, people still like to go to the cinema and experience the big screen. It's not as popular as it used to be because it's easier with streaming services and like people pirating films and everything. But still the same thing of people actually going to the cinema to see a film that's just been released on a massive screen with other people that have never seen it before. It's still a good experience.
Yeah,
and that's not going to die out, I don't think. What about you?
I'm interested in the question. I think cinemas are still going to be around for a while, but I think just like the convenience of Netflix, Disney Plus, all these streaming services, I don't think it's going to be long until they start going this massive budget that we've got for publicising its cinemas, for booking cinemas out. I don't know what the operations are behind the scenes of that. I don't know how that works. But there must be a huge amount of money involved in that industry. And I imagine there'll be a studio that'll go, rather than pump all the money into that, why don't we pump it into the films and publish straight to the viewer? So I think that's going to become more popular going down. But I don't know how big, how much of an impact that's going to have. I think that's going to happen though.
Yeah, just to see what people's preferences as well, innit? Yeah. Because if they do come straight to the person, does it kill off because it's just like watching a film at home, whereas you're actually going somewhere to go and watch it. It's differences in its preferences, like what is easier. Yeah,
and it also conflicts with like the box office opening, so it's like where that's what they judge success off, isn't it? By having people go to the cinema and buy it, and how could they measure that from Netflix watches or something like that?
Well, you can't.
You can't. Yeah.
Not really.
Because it's based off someone else's service.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good point. Next one was about like a past game or film past game I should say, that didn't have the best graphics or didn't have the best technology of the time, that I'd really want to redo and have like remaster, like Resident Evil 2 happened. And I looked that up after we talked about it a couple of episodes ago. That Resident Evil 2 came out in like 1997 1998. It was like 21 years ago. So I was surprised about how old that was.
Yeah, that is old.
But have you played much of the Dragon Quest series?
Dragon Quest, no.
But Dragon Quest 8 is probably my favourite game from PS2. I'll have nostalgic memories of it, which makes it seem better than it was, probably. That isn't one I would really like to see in modern day technology, modern day graphics. Because that was a bit like an open world game that you could explore, which a lot of the Dragon Quest games are, but that is again nostalgia. It's my favourite game, so I'd really like to see that with remastered graphics. I know they brought the characters back with some sequels, but just as itself, a remastered version I'd really enjoy.
I'm trying to think I can't like there's so many games that I love, but I can't think of one right this
just one singular game.
One singular game that you could just go like, oh yes, I would want that.
Pick that.
I mean, it's like, I'm saying because it's come out this month, but Halo, that was a nostalgic game for me.
Yeah.
And when I get the chance to play, like say the first one, Combat Evolved, when it first comes out, like I want to see how much they've remastered it to see, because that was a good game. I did love playing Halo a lot when I was younger.
And I know a lot of people put like the Halo series in like, or at least certain Halos as like in the top games of all time.
Oh yeah.
It's those ones that would be nice to one day just go, okay, I'm just going to try top 10 best games ever made. I'm just going to go through and play them all and see what they're actually like. Because I know like Uncharted 2's up there, one of the Halos is in there.
Fallout?
I think Fallout
would be a good one to remaster.
I've not played that either.
Fallout 3 definitely could use a remaster. I mean, it's good as how it was, but Fallout 3, if it was remastered and made into what it could be today, would be brilliant.
Yeah. It'd be good. I think a lot of... But then again, I argue... It's funny I bring this up as a question, because I argued about this in the previous podcast when I said about the Game of the Year for Resident Evil, and I was saying I found it very odd that Resident Evil was getting nominated for Game of the Year award being a remastered version. So it's odd that I'm bringing this up now.
Yeah, well, like you said, like at the time, like if it's remastered now, it could technically be a different game. So it could. I mean, yeah, obviously you'll have a lot of people going to it that are wanting the nostalgia, so that'll help it out. But you'll have other people going to it because they'll have never tried it.
Yeah, because it's 21 years.
It's 21 years old.
2 generations of people, basically. Yeah. So what we're going to go into is some of the best that we consider some of the best book to screen adaptions. So that's both film and TV. And we're going to start off with one of the pinnacle. Well, all 3 of them are going to be like really good, but first one we're going to go with into Lord of the Rings. So, do you want to start anywhere in particular, or?
Well, as you know, I've been I tried to read Lord of the Rings a few years ago, and I kind of got stuck. But I've got back into it now, and I've nearly finished it again. And reading it again, it's such a massive world, and I feel like, and detailed as well. And I feel like the films when they came out, they were brilliant.
Yeah,
they actually brought this world to life. They brought the different races in, the actual places. Because obviously, when we're reading, we've got good imaginations, and you can picture these places in your mind.
Yeah,
and what they make in the film brings it pretty damn close.
Yeah,
to what you want, and they're enjoyable films. They're not corny. They are very, very good.
Yeah,
and they bring the actors as well. Bring those characters to life, and as a brilliant representation of that of Tolkien's work.
Yeah,
I mean, you've got to have adapted that work to a modern audience because it was released in 1954, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, the book. So
I definitely agree, and I think a good judge of an adaptation, from you might disagree, but a good judge of an adaptation is when you're reading the book again, or for you it'd be the first time, that you see the movie stars as the characters.
Yeah,
I think because it's like Ian McKellen is Gandalf.
He is.
Like,
yes.
No, like obviously there's small character differences between adaptions, but he is Gandalf, Frodo is Elijah Wood, like they are those characters, and I think that's a really good representative when you can think of them as the characters when you're reading them, and it's not just off your own imaginations.
It's another thing as well that I was thinking about as well, that when it comes to Tolkien's book, they're very descriptive, they're very long-winded at times, and they bring in these weird minor characters and minor plots that don't really have much into it, but it takes up so much time in the books, like Tom Bombadil in the first one, and that's a good thing with the films was that they actually took a lot of these minor plots out that just didn't need to be there. Yeah, because if they kept it all in, these films would be a lot longer than they actually are.
That's the thing to do with. I'm going to bring it up later with Harry Potter, but the idea of it doesn't have to be a strict adaptation.
No.
Because some of the cuts that Peter Jackson did for the films was good. Yeah. Like the removal of Tom Bombadil, even though an interesting character in his own right, not what the film was needed.
No.
Like it was a really good cut to the adaptation, which I thought. Obviously, there was some differences. I don't know. Have you gone to like Faramir in the books?
Yeah, I've gone past Faramir.
Because like Faramir in the books is meant to be like a very good character, like a very morally good character, and is unshakable in that. Whilst in the films, although he's also like another Boromir. Like he attempts to get the ring. And I wrote the quote, but I've left it upstairs. And it's where he's like, I would never get the ring, even if it was by the wayside.
Yeah.
Like, that's what Faramir is in the books.
Yeah.
So there is leeway, because we've talked about this in the bad book adaptions stuff we talked about when films are made to entertain people, and so doing a strict adaptation may not fit that purpose.
Yeah, sometimes you need to bring in a bit of differences. I mean, like we're taking Faramir and taking it, and when it comes to taking Sam and Frodo to Osgiliath, it's a good difference because it also at the end of it shows you Osgiliath, whereas you don't really see it in the book. You hear about it, but you don't actually physically see them and that battle. Whereas, which is definitely a good change because it brings brings entertainment to the audience and a bit of like, oh God, is actually Frodo gonna get away from this? How's this gonna work?
And it's the same. We talked about this in the first episode, I think we did, when we talked about The Hobbit, where in the book, in the book it's from Bilbo's perspective, and during the Battle of the Armies, he gets knocked out. The next page is Bilbo waking up.
Yeah.
But for the film, it showed the battle, it showed everything that went on, which is that exact theme. The film needs to be entertaining, needs to show, it needs to make the most of what it's got, especially with The Hobbit.
Exactly, yeah, to make it entertaining.
Yeah, which is the same with Osgiliath, being able to see this fantastical set that they built.
Yeah.
And an amazing thing that brings up is the practical effects.
Yeah.
The armour was real. Everything was
pretty much real, yeah.
Yeah, they built everything. Do you know about the Aragorn or Viggo Mortensen kicking scene?
Oh yes, in the Two Towers.
Yeah. So,
where they find the orcs that took Pippin and Merry, and he actually when they find one of his belts, he kicks one of the helmets.
So for those who don't know, there's a scene in the second film where Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli find burnt pile of orc bodies, and within that they find the elven brooch. And Aragorn kicks a helmet, which goes flying, and then screams in pain. Well, he screams
in anguish.
That's perfect. In anguish from thinking that the hobbits have been killed. But what was in the behind the scenes was that Viggo Mortensen kicked it, and the scream was from pain because he'd just broken his foot.
Yeah, he'd just broken his toe kicking a proper helmet.
Because the helmet was practical. It was an actual helmet. Kicked it, broke his foot, screamed from the pain, and then Peter Jackson kept it in because it was perfect.
Well, you can actually hear when he goes down on his knees after he's done that scream of pain. You can hear him whimpering a little bit.
It's
good. It's good to keep that in.
They might as well use it. I mean, you put the effort in.
Yeah.
But to do with, as you say, the descriptive of the world, it's a very large world that Tolkien's created, and the scale of that world needed that 3-hour film, 3.5. Like when you go into like the extended cut, it's like near 4 hours, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
It needed that time, and we talked about in our Bad Book Adaptions podcast, we talked about Aragon, which had similar sized world. I don't think it's as big, but it needed that time. It didn't have that time period to expand that world, and so a lot of bad cuts were made to that film. But this one, they had that 3-hour per book.
Yeah.
In order to flesh it out, in order to bring in the dwarves and the elves and the journey, and be able to give everything the time it needed to get yourself invested in this world.
Well, that's it. I think you need to have some detail and enough time to actually use it.
There were some, like, I know some people. It's an odd one because it's one of the best adaptions out there. But some of the stuff that people say why it's a bad adaptation because it's taking stuff out, is stuff that it's again we talk about the film stuff, like this is because you've just finished the second book, haven't you?
Second Two Towers book.
Yeah. So spoilers for the third book, but
I've nearly finished the third book as well.
No, you'll be right then. But there's a few things. Well, in the second book, I'll go first. Helm's Deep.
Yeah.
There's no elves.
No.
But again, it's one of those things. It makes it more interesting.
Yeah. In the book, it seemed to me like the Helm's Deep battle seemed a bit underwhelming in the actual book. But when it came to the film, they made it into like a massive plot point.
That's interesting. That because I wonder what your experience would have been of it if you'd read the book first.
Yeah.
Because obviously it's in the film, it's a big spectacle,
and
so you think, oh, it's going to be the same in the book.
Yeah, it'll just be a little skirmish, pretty much, won't it? Yeah.
Another one, but the two main ones from Return of the King that people mention or bring up to as negative, because we're just talking, so we're going to bring up the positives and negatives of it, was Frodo and Sam. Like in the film, Frodo boots Sam to the curb after getting on with Gollum.
Yeah.
Like, and that doesn't happen in the book.
No.
Because Frodo and Sam are companions. Like they stick together, and he doesn't do that. So people get annoyed. But it's just that added thing, isn't it? It's just that added bit of conflict,
bit of drama,
and the biggest difference between them is the ending of The Return of the King, which is for those who's not read the books, there's a big part of the book during the ending is about the Shire, which has been taken over by Saruman, and Frodo and the hobbits have to go and take it back off him, and that leads to a whole big thing. Because I was a bit disappointed, really, with Saruman's end in the film, really.
Yeah.
Because, excuse me. Because even though some people might not even know how he dies in the film, because they only showed
it was cut out.
It was cut out. It's only in the extended cut or the director's cut, because there's an extended cut and there's a director's cut. So Saruman dies in the film by getting stabbed by Grima, topples over and gets impaled by a wheel.
Yeah.
But even that, I was disappointed that they even cut that out.
Yeah, well,
because people who just watched the film
was like,
cinema-wise,
he's
stuck in there for a bit. Like the Ents have trapped him there for all time.
Yeah,
and
it's either or, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. Well, I think Lord of the Rings was one of the best adaptions out there, one of the best worlds, and one of the most impressively made as well, because of the practical effects and the time period that they all came out in, because they were all made within 5 years of each other, I think.
I think it was like 3.
It might have been.
I'm pretty sure Fellowship of the Ring came out 2001. Then it was 2002 to the Two Towers. Return of the King was 2003. It was ridiculously short.
Because that's just... Obviously, I would imagine they would have to record them back to back to back.
Oh, yeah.
But in the modern day, when it's just like, we have to give this short 90-minute film 3 years to make.
Yeah.
And they made 12 hours of content when you take into account the extended cuts and such, like, in 3 years. It's ridiculous. Or at least they were released in 3 years. I don't know how long the filming process was, but
obviously,
it's just incredible what they managed to do back then. So, what's your opinion? Like, before we go into the next one, what's your opinion on the use? Do you think the use of CG that we have now is excessive because it's available?
Yeah, I'd say so. I'd say, like, definitely at the time of like these older films and everything, they had to use practical effects, and it made it more lifelike. Whereas now CG is just there and it's easier, so they use it all the time. But you can tell that they're using CG, and in some ways it kind of ruins the films. Yeah, depending on how much they use. I prefer practicals. Yeah, much better. But I definitely agree with that. I'd say it's more excessive. Yeah.
I think so as well. It has its place, but I think with the technology available, it doesn't have to be you. Like, no. I think we're not filmmakers, obviously, but it'd be nice for the films to be done with how the film's going to be best done. If that's very badly worded, but it's like, if it needs CG to do that, or if that's going to be the best use or best way to show this particular scene, then CG should be used. But if practical effects is better, again, this is to do with costings, and there's a lot of stuff in the background that we don't know about, and we've never had the experience to do or look into. But it's just like a dream world of having films being produced. It would be good, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of times CG can be a quick fix.
Oh yeah, easily.
Yeah, so that's Lord of the Rings. We're going to go into... So this is why we called it Film to Screen, because we're going to go into Game of Thrones. So, do you want to start again?
Go. I've read all the books that have obviously come out, and I feel like Game of Thrones is a brilliant TV show. Yeah. Up to a point. Now,
is that up to the end of the books?
It's up to the end of the books. I feel they did such an amazing job with it, and it was definitely a good decision of them to not make it into films. Because I feel like if they'd have done films, too much would have been left out.
I definitely agree. I think it would have been 7 4-hour films. It would have been need to be
easily, if not. Well, they've done it in 1 hour episodes with 10 episodes mainly per book. Yeah, and that's just about done it. Yeah, and even then they've had to do quite a bit of cutting. Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, like, it's such a detailed world, but they've done it so well. I mean, you could tell obviously in the first season that there was definitely budget issues because like a lot of the big fights weren't there. because they just didn't have the money for it. I mean, like an example of that would be the battle between between the Lannisters and the Starks with the decoy army.
Yeah.
Because in that, Tyrion was in the TV show, he was knocked out.
Yeah.
And woke up at the end of the battle, whereas
doing a Bilbo.
Exactly, another Bilbo, but the opposite way this time. But in the book, he was actually in charge of the wild men from the east, and actually took part in the battle. Yeah. Obviously, with it being the first season, not many people went to it, so it had budget issues. Yeah. But after that, it started to get better, and they started to bring in more money.
Yeah.
And they did such a good job. Like the casting of some of the characters. I mean, Peter Dinklage as Tyrion.
I think this goes back to like the previous thing we were talking about, Lord of the Rings. Like the characters are the actors now.
The characters are the actors, like definitely.
If you reread the book, you'd think of Tyrion.
Easily.
You'd think of like the first one that popped into my win was actually Tywin.
Yeah.
Like Charles Dance, I think his name is.
Yeah.
Like he was Tywin. That's the first one that popped into my mind. Sean Bean.
Sean Bean is definitely Ned Stark.
Yeah.
No doubt about that.
They are the characters now.
Oh yeah, and it's just brilliant. I mean, it was definitely a good idea to make it into a TV show. But like I said, do you want to put any positives before we get into the negatives?
I think you're on a roll. Just keep going, and I'll fit in a sec.
Yeah, negatives wise, like I said, I love Game of Thrones up to a point, and that was where the books ended. The books ended at the moment but just before the Battle of the Bastards.
Yeah.
No, actually, it's even earlier than that. It's before Stannis.
Because it's just after Jon dies, isn't it?
Yes. No. Yes. That's where it ends. Jon dies. That's where it ends. But just before that, it was Stannis was just about to attack Winterfell.
Yeah.
trying to remember the bloody place now, but that was just about to happen.
Yeah.
And after that, the TV show they have to obviously do their own thing.
Yeah.
And go off just little things that George R.R. Martin must have told them how he wanted it to end, maybe, and they just did it their own way.
Yeah.
And it didn't do well at all. You could tell.
Well, I sort of disagree because there were aspects of it that were well, and I think you might disagree because, but I think a lot of the stuff that happened in regards to the TV show after the books finished. So, was it season 5 that Jon that was it?
Yeah, I think so.
And then, so season 5, season 6, that was them. That was them doing their stuff aside from the books.
Yeah,
I think that was done well. There were certain aspects that I didn't enjoy. But I think that's heated a lot more now because of season 7.
Yes.
I think everyone enjoyed what they'd done with it, what they'd done roll. And like I say, there's stuff that we didn't enjoy about it because of the changes that they had to make. But I think that gets viewed more poorly now because of season 7, because of the way it ended and the way it was rushed.
Yeah, it was definitely well too rushed.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, those, it's up to a point where it's after the Battle of the Bastards, just before he actually gets into season 7. That part's brilliant, yeah. So I agree with that, yeah. It's just when, obviously, the writers both rushed, thinking, we'll just get rid of this, get it out of the way, and then we'll get new jobs. And, would you look at that? You've rushed it, you made a mess of it, yeah, you've been sacked.
But, and I think there's some elements in this, such as in Lord of the Rings, where they cut out stuff that didn't necessarily need to be in there, because a major one that's cut out is a character called Lady Stoneheart.
I was going to say about this, yeah.
Do you want to go?
No, you go ahead.
So she's
Catelyn.
Catelyn
Stark. What are you doing?
I don't know.
She is Catelyn Stark. That was resurrected.
Catelyn Stark. She was resurrected by the Brotherhood Without Banners.
Yep.
Or the Lord of Light. Both the same thing, really. And she's then not a major point in the books up to now. She is in the books, and she's going and taking revenge against the Freys and everyone who's gone against the Starks, to the point of going a bit mental, really, because she then attempts to kill Brienne and is it Podrick William?
Podrick Payne. Yeah.
So she's lost the plot a bit, but I think she's going into being a big character. Like she's
well, she is the leader of the Brotherhood Without Banners, because when she was resurrected, it took a lot out of because it was Beric Dondarrion that resurrected her, and it killed him. Whereas
Kill him?
It killed him. He's dead.
Oh, I forgot about
that. In the book, yeah, that's why she takes over the Brotherhood Without Banners, whereas in the TV show he's alive.
Yeah, but that was something that they didn't need. Like people kept. What do you just?
I kind of disagree. I think she should have been in.
Yeah.
I definitely think she should have been in. I mean, that's a good plot thing, that to have Catelyn Stark, who had a throat cut at the Red Wedding, and a body thrown into the river, to be then found and resurrected, and it's kind of would maybe bring in a little bit of horror and a good plot point, because literally all she can do now, she can't speak, she can just croak, and that'd be weird. And all she does at that point, like, kill you. I think maybe the story could have used her.
Yeah.
Just as another part of bringing around, like, having a go at the Lannisters.
Having a go at the Lannisters.
Get the Lannisters, come on.
That's fine. And because she was one of the characters that every season people were saying, is Lady Stoneheart going to be in it? Is Lady Stoneheart going to be in it? And then they gave up after when they got to season 6, because just like,
it's too late now.
Yeah, it's too late. You can't really do anything with it.
Well, that's it. Being like, I've not heard of any of the other minor characters that were in the books being like as much like people wanted as Lady Stoneheart.
Yeah,
they wanted her in it because to them and to us and to me definitely, like, she seems like a major point of the actual show. Yeah. Well, of the books and everything. So I reckon they should have put her in it.
One thing we want to talk about was to do with, we talked about in Lord of the Rings with, or well, not even Lord of the Rings, just that little side point we talked about CG and effects.
Yeah.
About during the duration of the TV show, the first 3 or so seasons, the budget was obviously still an amount that was to do a good season, but it was more to do with characters and more to do with the relationships, just scenes of people sat in a room talking to each other, and it was like that mental battle. And as it got more popular, as more money got pumped into it, it was more about the visuals and the spectacles. My opinion is that it descended because of that, but it also, those scenes needed to be in there because it was leading up to these big spectacles. But I don't know, I think you can enjoy both sides, but what's your opinion on it?
A lot of films, like, it's a bit of both. There are lots in the books, massive battle scenes that you definitely need to be in there, but you've also got, like you said, talking. There's a lot of, like, it's literally politics. Yeah. There's a lot of that as well. You've got to have both, and I think they did that quite well, because you do need the both of them together to actually make the story. You can't have all the big spectacles but none of the politics behind it.
Yeah.
So I reckon they did do that quite well.
Who would you say the best villain was out of the series?
Oh,
either like best villain in reference to the series, or best performance, or anything like that.
I'd probably say it's Cersei. She was a major thing in the entire part of Game of Thrones. And the only thing that was keeping her kind of sane were her kids. Yeah. And when her kids all died, that was it. All the bets were off, and she proper came into her own as like a deranged woman scorned. And I think they did that quite well, besides the ending. Yeah. What about you?
So I really enjoyed Ramsay Bolton's Ewan Rion or something like that. Yeah. I think the actor's name is. I thought his performance as Ramsay was one of the best in it as a villain, or as a. It's that politics aspect of it. He is a villain character.
Oh yeah.
But a lot of the characters within it are just different motivated characters. Like Cersei becomes a villain character, I think, and she's a bad character, a morally bad character from the start. Yeah. But it's when politics is involved, it's not villain, it's who you root for, who's against, who's doing good, who's doing bad from different perspectives, and I think that's something within the whole thing was done really well. I know they made a B of the last season, but it's like Daenerys.
Yeah.
Like, she was the good character until she started going mental.
Yeah.
Which I know is a bit iffy because of the writing, and
Yeah.
it came out of nowhere a tad. But
that was the show wise, but the film wise, you can kind of see it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And I think a good thing about it was about the adaptation. It being a good TV adaptation was introduction to people who won't have read the books.
Yeah.
Because the books are a pretty solid read.
Oh yeah.
They take some reading endurance to get through.
Mm.
Clash of Kings is 900 pages, I think, which is the second book, and Game of Thrones itself is about 600 to 700, isn't it?
Yeah, and then obviously after that, he had to cut in two, cut the other books in two because they were that long.
It's a really good adaptation because it's introduced people into the book series that would not have touched it because of the length of them. Like, how many people have read the entire series because of the TV series? Probably a good proportion of readers. Maybe
you could say that's the same for Lord of the Rings. Might be quite a few people that haven't read Tolkien's work.
Yeah, true as well.
Because that's a solid read.
That's a solid read as well, and I think Tolkien's a more difficult read as well. But then they both have the Game of Thrones series and Tolkien series, Lord of the Rings series. They're written in tone in a tone that befits the story.
Yeah.
Like, Tolkien writes in a way that befits the time he lived in, which was 60, 70 years ago, and George R. R. Martin writes in a way that befits the story of setting, like medieval language, like Ned's son of whatever he's called. So they are written in an interesting way. I think Tolkien's is written in a way that's harder to read for people in the modern day.
Definitely, yeah. You can tell the differences between how people speak.
And I think the next one I'm going to talk about is Harry Potter, which is written in a very easy to read way.
That was a really easy one.
But yeah, is there anything you would have changed? Obviously, you said it would have been good to introduce Stoneheart into it. Is there anything else that you would have liked to have had in the adaptation or not in the adaptation?
I think besides just having Lady Stoneheart in there, I think the one thing that could have changed was definitely obviously that last season. Made it into another 2.
Yeah.
Because I felt like with the last season, it was all very rushed.
Yeah, I'd agree.
And you had, within 6 episodes, you had 3 main villains.
Yeah.
Which they should have really had about a season each.
Yeah. So they should have been 10 seasons.
Oh, yeah.
But that's just backdoor.
That's not going to happen now.
Still. So last one we're going to go into is Harry Potter, which you might disagree. I'd consider the best book to film adaptation. Your thoughts?
From maybe a nostalgia point of view, yes, because they came out at the time when we were quite young.
Right.
And I did love Harry Potter as a kid. Definitely still do.
This is not to say I think the films are better, because I think the Lord of the films are better. I just think Harry Potter was the better adaptation.
Yeah. Well, it brings, from the books, the wonder and the magic of it all, doesn't it? To the actual screen. I mean, like you said, the way that the books are wrote, it's very easy. And it's kind of almost like childlike. And then the adaptation brings it to everyone.
Yeah.
And they do the books justice.
Yeah.
Pretty damn well. And then it's also good how, you said before about the actors becoming the characters.
Yeah.
They have. I mean, you've got Rupert Grint, you've got
Ian McKellen.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember them all now. But yeah, and they have become them because they were them.
Alan Rickman, perfect example of that.
Alan Rickman definitely was Snape. But that was over the course of 8 films and over 10 years of working, they did so well to bring it all to life, and you saw them grow up as they would have done in the books.
Oh, the ages thing was perfect. I was going to talk about this in regard to, we talked about Percy Jackson last week or a couple of weeks ago, about how the actor was cast as because of you can listen to it in the other podcast, but it's at 16 when he should have been 12, and in this it was properly done. Like
They
he was at the age
Yeah.
that he was in the books and progressed, fitting the story.
Yeah.
Growing up as they went, which is perfect.
Exactly.
It's perfect
Brilliant.
adaptation.
Yeah.
So this is one I wanted to talk about, whether it's good to have a strict adaptation, because I think this is the one, in comparison to the other two, that's been the most firmly adapted. Like, it's almost scene for scene flipped on, apart from probably some character building, some exposition stuff, and a couple of characters that probably didn't need, like Peeves.
I was going to say Peeves. Yeah, they don't need that.
No, like those are three cutting stuff, that reasoning, such like. But apart from that, I think this was the most scene for scene adaptation out of the three of them.
I definitely agree with that. I mean, like I said, that there's nothing really major that they've left out, and they've pretty much just moved the books into the film.
Yeah,
and that is how it is, and that's it. There's no one that can really say that they're bad, or that they've done a bad job. They have done a brilliant job, and it kind of, to me, it makes these films timeless. Yeah, I really enjoy these films, and I could watch them forever. Like they've just done.
ITV could watch them forever as well, because they're on every week.
Yeah, every year at the Christmas they do it. Oh, every Sunday we'll do the next one, as they had done too. But I do think that Harry Potter is an amazing adaptation. Yeah, and there's not much I could say about them that are bad. Yeah, from what I can think, there's nothing.
Performances good.
Yeah,
adaptation from the books was good. Like, you can literally go to a scene in the book and just go, oh, this was, I can remember this scene from the film. I don't know, there's not much to say about Harry Potter really, because it's that good.
It's just that good. They've done it really, really well.
Here's one I wanted. Do you think there'll ever be a remake of this, or do you think this is, because it's such a fair adaptation, should they even touch it again?
I don't think they should touch it. I think if they did touch it, it would ruin it, and I wouldn't want to be a part of that at all.
Part of it?
No, I'd want to.
I mean, they were knocking on your door saying, "Can you direct this?" But it's just like, no, not for me.
No morals. No, Harry Potter is timeless. You don't touch Harry Potter. Yeah, I don't think they should touch it.
Would you say the same of Lord of the Rings?
Yeah.
I think so as well.
I think so. I wouldn't touch Lord of the Rings either. There's those people, and it's just become that they should not be touched. Don't know if you'd agree with that. Yeah.
No, I agree. Yeah. I think it's just it's interesting. It's like a creativity into it. Like, it's an odd thing with books now, because there's not. But then again, I don't follow books too much anymore. Like, I don't catch up with new stuff as much. But there's no new series that I keep track of that were to the scale of. But then again, it's like Lord of the Rings 60 years ago when they only made it with films. So is there something that's going to be out now that we don't know about, that in 50 years is going to be the big thing then?
Well,
that's a bit much actually, because cinema's cinema now, and 50 years it's going to be like watching through your headset.
Yeah, it's going to be different.
Watching through your implant in your ear. A final thing we wanted to talk about was an adaptation that we'd really want to happen. And that is for a book series called Skullduggery Pleasant by Rick Reed and friggin' Percy Jackson. That
Derek Landy.
This is a series we both read. There's 2 seasons, as it were, where he's written 9 books, and then there's this second series, so to speak, quotation marks, of another couple of books. So we're just going to talk about the first 9, not in full, just like as a brief overview. But it's about a detective skeleton animated by magic, who's this witty, charming character in a world of magic, and has this female companion who grows up and learns to experience this world. And it's a dark, and how would you best describe it?
It's a dark and horrible world, but also it's got really humorous and witty places as well throughout the entire thing. I mean, it's written for teens generally, but it's also for an adult audience. Yeah. So it's one of those witty, humorous, dark places. Yeah. And it's a brilliant book series. I mean, like, you can just keep reading them and reading them. They're easy reads.
Yeah, they're very easy reads. Very easy series to get into.
Yeah.
And it builds very well going on. It's another one of these where the characters, or the main character, which is a character called Valkyrie Kane, she starts off similar like to the other ones we've talked about, like at 12, and then grows up and experiences this world.
Like every book is like a year later.
Yeah.
Most of them anyway.
But it's like a gritty series, like gritty version of Harry Potter.
Yeah.
I know that Harry Potter has some dark moments, but it's not really the tone of the books.
No.
But that is the tone of these books, and that's why I really enjoy that aspect. What I wanted to ask is, do you have any casting ideas of who you would have? Because one that came up when I read into, like, when they were thinking about taking it was Scuddery Pleasant as Johnny Depp, which I think would work.
I did hear that. That would have been an alright one, I think, definitely.
I think it's past that now.
Oh, yeah.
I think this was ages ago, but I think that would have been a really good casting. Valkyrie Kane, you can't really cast because it would be a young actress growing up.
Tanith Lowe, I would say maybe Scarlett Johansson.
That would work.
I would say definitely her. Ghastly.
Yeah.
I'm thinking maybe James McAvoy.
That could be interesting.
That'd be different, wouldn't it?
Ooh, that'd be interesting.
Because if you think of him as in what was the film that he was in that he had separate personalities and he was bald? Split.
Mm.
If I look at him like that and how Ghastly is a character who is a friend with Skullduggery Pleasant, and he's bald, but also has got scars all across his head. So I reckon James McAvoy could do that quite well.
And Tanith Lowe is like a martial artist,
sword wielding
badass, basically. And I think one of the things in the world is it's another one of these created worlds. It's based on ours. It's a bit like Harry Potter, where the world is behind the world we're living in.
Yeah.
And the magic setup of it is very well integrated. Like, it's very broken down into how things work, so you can understand, like, there's elementals and there's adepts and these necromancers. Like, it's very understandable.
It's very easy
how magic works, as opposed to something where you're trying to guess how things work. It's very
it's cut and dry, in a way. So it's a really good way to go into it. But like we were saying, like, characters wise, this brings in a lot of good characters. It makes this world so rich and different. Like, there are hundreds of characters that you learn, and
it's not a predictable series either, because it has there's some Game of Thrones character moments, if you understand the meaning of, you don't expect it and suddenly they're gone. Like, it's not subtle. It's not afraid to kill off characters.
No. And characters that you've loved, and you want to see go on, and then they do stuff to them or they kill them off, and then it's like, well, that was unexpected.
Yeah, so I think that sets it apart from a lot of similar series, and is one of the reasons why I do actually want Adaption.
Definitely be brilliant.
Because it's so long, I think that do you reckon that helps or hurts it?
Well, I'd say maybe helps it, because even though it's so long, there's a lot of source material to use. So it's not like Game of Thrones, where you've got obviously they only had parts of the book still, and then they started making them, and then they ran out. Whereas this, if they just did the first series of the novels, they have the whole source material. It's just a case of me, like, they might not be able to do all 9 films, but they could try at the very least. I mean, give it a few films, see how many people like it. I mean, if you say, like, with the MCU, you've got 20 to 30 films there. So there is always the possibility that this could go into one of those franchises. I mean, even Harry Potter. Harry Potter's got 8 films. Yeah. Whereas this is only an extra 1 film per, and it's only one per book. I reckon they could do it.
Would you say film or TV?
I reckon they could do it film.
Yeah.
I think TV would be a bit... No, it'd be too much. These books are an easy read, and they're all kind of condensed. There's not massive amounts of detail into it. I reckon you could easily do them as films. Yeah. Easily.
I agree. I think film would be the way to go with it. Even if they started it off just with the first 3.
Yeah.
Because if they changed some things, I think they could do a trilogy of them based off the first 3 books, and then if that worked, continue on.
Carry on, yeah.
So, it's called A Very Pleasant Series by Derek Landy. I think everyone should check out. I think it's good. It's a really enjoyable read, really easy read to get into, and crossing fingers for it. But we'll see how that goes. If you've enjoyed the series, thanks very much for listening right to the end. You can find us on social media at Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at the What's On Podcast, and at Twitter at _What's On Podcast. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much. See you now.